All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. I want you to picture something with me, really paint a visceral picture in your mind of a lost American tradition. Imagine it's a sunny Saturday afternoon, sometime in the 1950s. A whole neighborhood gathers in a driveway, but they're not there for a weekend barbecue. They're there for a ceremony. Right in the center of it all is a metal trash can, and a family is standing there holding a single heavy piece of paper, their mortgage note. They strike a match, the paper catches fire, and as it literally turns to ash, the whole crowd just erupts in cheers. You see, they weren't just celebrating paying off a house, they were celebrating the exact day they truly bought their freedom.
This 1950s ritual, the mortgage burning party, was a very public declaration of absolute financial autonomy. When you burned your mortgage back then, it meant no bank, no landlord, and no boss could dictate your life ever again. You didn't just own the roof over your head and the ground under your feet, you fully owned your time and your tomorrow. The stakes were incredibly clear to that generation. Debt was quite literally a chain, and paying it off was the ultimate escape hatch to true financial freedom.
But man, today that mindset has drastically shifted, hasn't it? We have essentially traded that old-school mindset of full, uncompromising ownership for a modern reality of mere access and perpetual debt. Today, the 30-year mortgage is just accepted as the default. People are stretching out car loans to 84 months just so they can swallow the monthly payment, and we actually celebrate refinancing our homes to pull out equity for things like a new kitchen. We might look richer on the surface, but structurally, we are poorer. We've replaced the ultimate goal of owning our lives free and clear with the convenience of endless monthly payments.
So, let's break this down. Section 1, Foundation, focusing on debt and housing.
How exactly do we get back to that ultimate goal of owning our lives? Well, we start by literally dusting off the blueprints of the past. We've got to shift our mindset away from just managing monthly payments and get back toward eliminating debt altogether. To rebuild that foundation, we're going to look at 5 forgotten strategies. First up, the 15-year mortgage, which, believe it or not, used to be the absolute standard. Second, the debt aversion ritual. This is treating debt like a hard spiritual boundary, not just a casual financial tool. Third is multi-generational wealth housing, where families actually pooled their resources to absolutely crush housing costs. Fourth, property tax optimization through legal homesteading. And fifth, community lending circles. This is where old-school face-to-face trust replaced bank interest and algorithms.
Okay, let's look at the staggering math behind that very first point, the 15-year mortgage. This perfectly illustrates the power of these old rules. If you take a standard $300,000 loan and switch it from a 30-year term to a 15-year term, you save roughly $116,013 in pure interest. By compressing your timeline, you are forcing a massive acceleration toward equity. You aren't just taking on a slightly higher monthly payment. You are literally buying back decades of your life from the bank. That is a massive game changer. And that really ties perfectly into the second and fifth strategies on our list. Our grandparents actually ritualized the avoidance of debt. They lived by a simple, totally unbending truth. If you can't pay cash, you can't afford it, period. Instead of relying on high-interest credit cards and just crossing their fingers, they utilized community lending circles and multi-generational living arrangements to keep their autonomy intact. They shared the risk locally so that no single family member ever became a slave to a commercial lender. Moving right along to Section 2, Engine, Assets and Income. So, once your foundation is poured and your debt is contained, we need to explore how the truly independent owner class converts flowing cash into stationary, unshakable wealth. Remember, your income is just a faucet. Your assets, that's your reservoir. This brings us to strategies 6 through 10. Number 6 is building those boring automatic asset accumulation habits. 7 is skill bartering. This means trading your time and expertise without a single dollar ever changing hands. 8 is home-based production, where you turn your home into a place that actually makes things, rather than just consuming them. Point 9 is absolutely critical for our modern era, intentional downshifting and geographic arbitrage. Basically, deliberately moving to where your money works infinitely harder for you. And finally, number 10 is utilizing self-insurance pools within trusted communities to completely bypass those massive corporate premiums. Together, these strategies fundamentally decouple your survival from a corporate payroll. Andrew Carnegie actually hit the nail on the head here when he said, "The way to become rich is to put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket." True wealth isn't generated by just passively saving whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. No way. It is generated through the relentless, focused acquisition of income-producing assets. We're talking real estate, dividend stocks, small businesses.
You have to stop buying depreciating liabilities and start accumulating assets that quietly put money back into your pocket while you sleep.
Now this is where it gets super interesting. There's a massive hidden ROI in home-based production that we completely ignore today. We obsess over squeezing out a 7% return in the stock market, right? But we brush right past the massive, tax-free dividends of simple DIY skills. Think about it like this. If you learn to fix your own leaky faucet instead of paying a plumber $200, that is literally a 300% return on your time. You are keeping hard-earned after-tax dollars right there in your pocket. Personal capability is a massive, highly underrated asset class.
Which brings us to Section 3, Mindset, Pride in Frugality.
Somewhere along the line, modern consumer culture completely tricked us into believing that living below your means is some form of deprivation. It isn't. We need to urgently reframe frugality as an absolute point of pride. It's a symbol of stealth wealth and really the ultimate flex of self-mastery. So here are the final 5 forgotten ways to build that fortress mindset. 11. Treating living below your means as a badge of honor, not a punishment. 12. Reviving the incredibly tactile cash envelope system. 13. Manual ledger keeping. That means literally writing down what you spend so you actually feel its weight. 14. Mastering delayed gratification through a strict 72-hour rule for any big purchase. And 15. Enacting a zero lifestyle inflation pact.
That last point is vital because lifestyle creep is the silent killer of wealth. The modern trap is that whenever your income grows, magically your expenses grow right along to match it, right? A nicer car, a slightly bigger apartment, way more subscriptions. The forgotten rule here is the zero lifestyle inflation pact. When you get a raise, you keep your baseline expenses exactly the same as they were yesterday, and you invest 100% of that new surplus. That is exactly how you aggressively widen the gap between what you make and what you spend. To put this into perspective, historically, maintaining a 20% income surplus wasn't considered some radical extreme behavior. It was just the cultural norm. That 20% gap between what you made and what you spent acted as a freedom tax, and you paid it willingly. But you weren't paying a government. You were paying your future self, buying time, building resilience, and securing the ultimate luxury, options.
All right, Section 4, the secret, the friction feature.
Now, we've got to pivot for a second. We know what to do, so why is it so incredibly hard to actually do it today? Why do we fail at these 15 rules? Well, it comes down to a crucial concept in behavioral psychology. I call it the friction feature, and it is the absolute secret engine that makes building wealth possible in a world completely designed to drain your wallet. Friction, in the world of choice architecture, means intentionally adding steps, mandatory waiting periods, and literal physical effort between your desire for an item and the actual purchase. Look, human nature hasn't changed in 10,000 years. Our limbic systems are totally wired for instant gratification. Friction simply puts structural barriers right in front of our own weaknesses. This creates a really stark contrast in how we live today versus how we used to live. On one side, we have the modern digital economy. One-click checkouts, tap-to-pay phones, saved credit cards on every website. This is a frictionless environment engineered specifically to make you poor by bypassing your logical brain entirely. But on the other side, we have the old-school systems, cash envelopes, forcing yourself to wait 48 hours to buy anything over $50. These are systems of intentional friction, designed for one reason and one reason only, to protect your wealth.
So how do we fix this? Here is exactly how you can inject friction back into your daily life right now. For online shopping, the trap is saved credit cards. The solution? Delete those apps and erase your saved payment methods so you are forced to manually type in those 16 digits every single time. For discretionary spending, drop the tap to pay and switch to physical cash envelopes. For major purchases, completely reject those buy now, pay later schemes and enforce a mandatory 72-hour waiting rule for yourself. If you still genuinely want the item in 3 days, go for it. But honestly, usually the urge simply fades away.
Look, I know it sounds annoying, but here is the hard truth you really need to internalize. Convenience is the enemy of wealth. When it comes to personal finance, friction isn't a bug, it is a vital, life-saving feature. Making spending difficult, tedious, and even slightly painful is exactly how you build an impenetrable fortress of financial security around your family. Simply put, the harder it is to spend, the easier it becomes to save automatically. All right, let's bring it all home. Section 5, the goal. True independence.
Let's tie this entire narrative back to our ultimate goal. We've walked through the 15 forgotten ways and the psychology of friction, but we really have to remember why we are doing this. How do you stop grinding and start actually owning your life?
Here is your immediate 90-day momentum plan. Step 1. Add friction today. Delete those shopping apps and switch the cash for your weekly fun money. Step 2. Optimize your housing. Run the numbers on a 15-year mortgage or seriously look into house hacking. Step 3. Automate your asset accumulation. Pay yourself first before you ever even see the money in your checking account. And Step 4. Freeze your lifestyle. Make that pact with yourself right now that your very next raise goes entirely to your freedom fund.
It all comes back to this classic piece of foundational wisdom from Warren Buffett. Do not save what is left after spending, spend what is left after saving. That literally encapsulates everything we've talked about today. The true secrets of the owner class aren't complex algorithms or shady crypto hacks. They are relentless discipline, smart behavioral design, and making your future a much, much higher priority than your present impulses.
Always remember, money is just a tool. It's just a medium of exchange. Total financial independence is not about amassing a giant pile of cash just so you can look at it like a high score. True success, true wealth, is having the absolute freedom to wake up on a random Tuesday without an alarm clock. It's the power to say no to a job you hate and to live life entirely on your own terms. It's about returning to that incredibly powerful feeling of the neighborhood gathering around the fire, knowing deep in your bones that you owe absolutely nothing to anyone.
The blueprints from the 1950s, they still work absolutely flawlessly today if you just have the courage to apply them in a frictionless world. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Knowing all the modern traps and now knowing all the forgotten tools, what is the very first step you will take today toward burning your own mortgage? Decide right now, take action, and let's start reclaiming your life.